Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to Hypergalactic Enigmas. I'm your host, Dr. Franklin Rule, along with co-host Benny Guzland. Tonight's topic, who are the mysterious shadow people? I wanted to make a comment, first of all, in case you want to, in addition to hear what we have to say, see some of our visuals, please check out the Dr. Rule Show. That's R-U-E-H-L on YouTube. Some excellent visuals put together by Benny, who's a master videographer. Now, a trivia question regarding shadows, appropriately. The question, what is the technical term for the fear of shadows? It's multiple choice, inverse alphabetical order. Is that taphophobia, sciophobia, ombrophobia, or nephophobia? And I ask you, Benny, what's your choice there?
Oh, well, would it be nephophobia?
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
No. It's sciophobia. That's S-C-I-O-P-H-O-B-I-A, for any of you taking notes. And just in case you're ever on one of those quiz shows. For the record, taphophobia, fear of being buried alive. Ombrophobia, fear of rain. And nephophobia, Benny's choice, is the fear of clouds. Now, for the shadow people, did you know any of those, Benny?
No. I figured nephophobia because, like, from the Nephilim, because in a minute it gets into the shadow people and the Nephilim and all that. That's why I picked that. That's interesting. I didn't know any of those.
Well, a good choice. We'll let you have a half a pat on the back for your logic. Now, as far as the shadow people are known also as shadow figures, shadow beings, shadow men, shadow folk, also darklings, and night marchers. And descriptions of them come from all cultures and times. Primarily, they are seen at night. They have a deep, non-reflective black humanoid silhouette for the most part, and they're so dark that even in a darkened room, you can see their outline. Typically, they have no discernible mouths, eyes, or noses, or facial expressions, but of course there are always exceptions, and interestingly, some of them seem to have glowing eyes. They can be glowing white, yellow, orange, or even blue or red. Yes. Now, everything in terms of shape, from being essentially shapeless or amorphic to having your typical humanoid shape, all sizes ranging from child size to extremely tall. They apparently, and for the most part, they'll have a standard human outline. However, they may morph from one form to another. They may begin as a cloud-like figure and then slowly materialize into a humanoid figure. Some appear to be wearing cloaks, and one type called the Dark Hatman, or the Darkling King, actually wears what's called a 1930s-style fedora hat. The movement generally very quick and disjointed. Some move as though they're dancing, flitting across a room very quickly. They also apparently can penetrate solid walls and doors. Some can ascend up into a ceiling from the floor. They're basically spectral beings that have no real substance, but again, we have counterexamples where some appear to be somewhat solid. Now, when they interact with humans, it's usually in a negative, hostile sense. They may bite them, scratch them, try to strangle them. In fact, we even have some reports, we don't know if these are true or not, but some reports claim that violent shadow beings will rip out a person's kidney and eat it, yes. Now, they usually target sleeping victims, and again, as I say, normally seen at night, but we have a few counterexamples. And I should point out that some say you can see them more clearly from the periphery of your eye. And one Native American legend said if you see it out of the left eye, out of the left side, that means that's a deadly shadow being. Out of the right eye, a friendlier one. And some might say, well, are these just another form of ghosts? How are they differentiated from ghosts? And I think that's a very good question. But basically, we don't see that true human form. Of course, with ghosts, I should mention, we have everything from spectral orbs floating in a room to full-fledged humanoids who are dressed completely, and everything in between, partial humans, just shadows of bright lights. But unlike ghosts, the shadow people, never seen as glowing entities, and unlike some ghosts who perhaps might try to communicate with humans or even issue a warning, these shadow beings apparently do not do that. There may be a few counterexamples, but for the most part, that's how they're differentiated from ghosts. And again, the idea, ghosts are entities who once lived, were once humans, and now have existence beyond the grave. The idea of the shadow beings may be another type of entity, never a living human being. But we can't be certain. They could be just a subset of ghosts. And of course, as I mentioned, they're mentioned in cultures around the world, such as Native American legends, Hawaii, Asia, Africa, and of course in all time periods. So I want to turn this over to our biblical expert, Benny, and ask if there are any scriptural references that could be interpreted as pertaining to shadow beings. Is that a possibility?
Yes,
Benny?
yes, Doctor. There's actually quite a bit of scripture on this, and it goes really deep. I mean, this is something I could probably go on about for an hour long. Of course, we'll do that.
Keep it to less than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The amount of time we have left.
As you were saying earlier about the left eye, I actually seen one earlier with my left eye. I see the shadow people quite a bit. This is the reason I'm really into the study of shadow people. I've been lucky, which I suffer in my sleep from sleep paralysis, also known as hold-down dreams. I suffer from that. But I see shadow people quite a bit. And actually, right before I called you, to talk about the show, I seen one out of my left eye.
You're kidding.
I see them quite frequently. But right before I called you, I seen one out of my left eye.
Well, why don't you
they dart.
Describe the experience, because I've never seen one. I don't know if that's lucky or unlucky, but I have never seen a shadow being. Describe the experience you just had.
Most of the time, they're short. Sometimes they're tall. Most of the time, they're short. But this one, it was kind of tall, and it darted. Like I was saying, I was getting my stuff together, opening my Bible up, and it darted in. I seen it out of my left eye, and that's pretty much it. It goes like through the wall. It's just like a quick motion.
So how long would you say it had been there? A few seconds?
What I've seen, a few seconds. I mean, it could have been there longer. I've noticed there've been times, this has only happened to me a few times, but I've noticed I'll see it out of the corner of one of my eyes, and I'll look, and it'll be gone. I'll turn my head, and it'll be back. And I'll look, and there's been a few, like I said, a few times that it's like it would be playing with me. I've been lucky. I've never been hurt physically, but when I'm asleep, now I suffer from sleep paralysis really badly. I have hold-down dreams a lot. And while this is on my mind, this used to happen to me quite a bit. It's not happened to me recently, but used to when I would lay down to go to sleep at night. I would feel something rub my arm or even rub my feet. The first time it happened to me, I let this happen. I was trying to figure out what was this. Is it muscle?
How old were you the first time
this
experience occurred?
This is just a few years ago. And
so what age were you when
you
first had your first encounter with a shadow being?
With the shadow, just all my life. Grew up seeing the shadow people.
Even as a child?
Just always been around me.
Even as a child,
always
Benny?
been.
Even as a child?
Even as a child, I've been a therapist and everything for about all my life, because I've seen things. And especially as a child, and you're trying to deal with this stuff, you try to deal with shadow people and aliens and all this. It's real hard,
and
I
don't
really
want to believe you. They think
you're
imagining it.
Exactly. So you don't have nobody to talk to. And
Right.
This is where I think it is important that people like this show comes in handy. Paranormal groups, because you have people that experience this stuff, and you have people you can talk to, and they're not going to say you're crazy. Because I was probably out of high school really when this stuff started making sense for me. That it's not me, I'm not crazy, but this is just something that happens to people. That there are other things going on in the universe that's not right in front of our face. Maybe it's the frequency I think about, or like my brain waves or whatever, that I can see this stuff,
So you're saying perhaps some people are attuned. I could be in the same room with you, and perhaps I might not even see the creature that you're observing. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, exactly. You might not be able to see it, but I can. So I guess because like my frequency or however my brain works or whatever. And I guess this goes in with dimensions and even possibly gets into time travel and things like that.
Yeah,
but most of the time through my life.
Yeah, one woman who had it for 12 years, the shadow beings, in a sense, menacing her, not hurting her, but certainly frightening her. And her husband never believed it. Finally, one night he woke up when she had screamed, and he caught sight of it and finally believed her. So it's hard to get other people to accept this if they haven't experienced it themselves.
Exactly. It is. If you've not seen it, then it's hard to believe. Like I say, most of the time they're short. I don't know if that's just a frequency or what, but there's a few times, like I say, they're taller. But then again, it could be the way they move, because when they move, there is, like they're darting, so the shape looks smaller, you know?
And we have been
almost like a photograph.
Metamorphizing from, say, a cloud-like figure to a taller being, so they seem to have that ability to shapeshift. Now, what about the biblical references? I want to hear about those.
Okay, the biblical references. Yeah, we'll get it. This is, like I say, this is a good topic. First, the biblical references, we'll look in Psalms chapter 22. It's Psalms chapter 22, verses 12. I'm going to read from 12 through 18. It says, many bulls have compassed me, strong bulls of Bashan have beset me round. Verse 13, they gaped upon me with their mouths, as ravening and a roaring lion. Now here, as David is writing, he's into a trance. He goes into like this trance, and he sees into the future the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. So here we have at verse 13, it says, they gaped upon me with their mouths, as a ravening and roaring lion. So here you have these giants, and we'll get more in detail and explain all this in a minute. You have these giants, these dead spirits, the shadow people, here gaping and clawing and gnawing at Jesus Christ as he's on the cross. Here at verse 14 says, I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted in the midst of my bowels. My strength is dried up like a pot shred, and my tongue cleaveth to my jaws. And thou hast brought me into the dust of the death. For dogs have compassed me. The assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands, and they pierced my feet. Verse 17, I may tell all my bones. They look and stare upon me. Again, verse 17, I may tell all my bones. They look, these shadow people, they look and stare upon me. These creatures were really after Jesus Christ as he was hanging there. And verse 18 says, they part my garments among them and cast lots upon my vesture. Again, this is David singing to the future, the crucifixion, because it was David who finished off this army of giants. Him and his men finished off the army. They killed them. And Satan was so mad that, because Satan is a created being, he actually went to David himself. Satan did now. He wasn't in spirit. He was an actual. David had an alien encounter with Satan. What would you call it? Close encounter of the third kind. And Satan looked at him and said, "I challenge you to number Israel." And at that time, you didn't want to do that. You didn't want to do that. It was a sin, you know. I can't remember all the details why you don't want to number Israel. But yeah, he challenged him to number Israel. But anyway. Why was Satan so mad? This is because, you know, the angels come, or the giants come from the aliens breeding with humans. But anyway, let's go over to Job. We'll go look in Job, the book of Job, chapter 25, verse 5. It says, dead things are formed from under the waters and the inhabitants thereof. That word dead, you got to do your Hebrew word study on this. I use the book of Strong's Concordance. If you go over in Strong's, over into the Hebrew, and you look that word up, dead, you go to Job 25 at verse 5, and you take that word, and you look that word dead up, you get the word Rephaim. Rephaim is a species of giants. So that verse would read, Rephaim, things are formed from under the waters and the inhabitants thereof. Okay, now, let's go. So those of you, you know, got your Bibles, taking notes, underline that word dead, and maybe like your little notation. Do what now?
That 25, verse 25, what? Job 25?
That's chapter 25 of Job at verse 5.
Okay, I'm looking at it.
That word dead is Rephaim.
Well, in my Bible, it doesn't say dead.
You got it. I'm using the King James.
Well, I said, behold, even to the moon, and it shineth not, yet the stars are not pure in his sight.
Huh. Is that Job, the book of Job?
Job 25?
Wait, no, it's 26. I see. The way my Bible, I've got real big text, it's chapter 26. So my bad. Job chapter 26, verse 5.
Now you're right, Job 26:5. Dead things are formed from under the waters, and you're saying that's not dead things, but these Rephaim, which could be construed as giants. Is that what you're saying?